pole beans. Pole beans are fun to grow because they add height to the garden. Um, you can make a nice trellis out of sticks. Pole beans are ones that grow up a pole, so they're going to grow very, very tall. But they look great and they're easy to harvest. And you don't need a lot of plants to get a lot of beans out of it. And I start them in a pot like this for the garden. And I would put, like 3 beans in each. That's just how it's going to work. All right, they're nice and big. And so you're just going to stick it straight down into the soil. And you're just going to put 3 in, right? And say, 3/4 of an inch, half an inch down, and cover a little bit. Okay, and then just keep moist. So you want to water them? All right, so here I have, this is 2-3 weeks later. Right, you can see here only 2 of them germinated. That's fine, doesn't matter. Here all 3 did. That's great. They're ready to go in, right? These are a little, took a while to germinate, but they're going to be fine. You can see there's some roots coming out the bottom. That's going to tell you that, you could probably go ahead and plant them. We don't want to keep them too long in the pot. They will be forced to stay small and start flowering too early. This is really a great size. This is perfect. Right? They don't take too long to get to this size, so don't start them too early. But you want to put them out after danger of frost is past. It's best. They like to be warm. They don't really grow below 55 degrees. All right, so we're going to talk about pole beans. Pole beans are incredibly productive for the space that they take. The great thing about them is in a small space you can grow a ton of them because they're a vertical grower. You just got to give them something to grow up. And so you just, some poles. You can make them out of anything. And just this little structure is going to grow, buckets of green beans. These are the green beans that we started earlier, the pole beans, 3 in a pot. And this is about 4 weeks later, approximately. And it's perfect time for them to go into the ground. And the reason you can tell that is you can start to see some roots coming through the bottoms. And they haven't started flowering, which is good. They haven't been forced to flower. So now is the time to get them in there. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to plant them just right next to the each pole. And they're going to find the pole and wrap around it. If they don't, we're going to show them where it is. And then you can just either put it in the hole or just scratch in some fertilizer, whatever you're using, chicken pellets, some type of alfalfa meal. I'm using my mix, which has biochar, seaweed, feather meal, alfalfa meal, and these things are good to go. All right, so this is a check-in. So here we are at the green beans, the pole beans, and they've been struggling, and that's because they've been eaten by rabbits. So down here you can just see every time it tries to come up the pole, a rabbit comes along and gets the tender growing tip, because that's the best part, and it loves it, so it keeps eating it. So if you wanted to, you can put a fence around just your beans just to get them up the pole, because once they go up the pole, they're not going to bother them as much. They're not as great tasting. They'll go to the rest of the garden and see what else is good. But they're finally going up the pole over here, so we'll come back in 2 or 3 weeks and we'll start to see some green beans. Now is a good time to give it some fertilizer. It's been struggling, so zip it in, cultivate it in, whatever you need to do. So the only problem I have right now is these stupid Japanese beetles. And you know, if you have a small garden and they're not doing too much damage, you can just take them off and crush them, and that'll usually stop them. There are traps for them, so you can trap them. I've never used those really though. Then there's milky spore that you can put around your property, and that will lower the amount of them. And that's what I did years ago. And it made a huge difference. I mean, we used to be covered in them, and now they're here, but they're certainly not as bad. But we still have great green beans. These are a very long variety, but you can harvest them when they're small like this for some really nice haricots verts, which is the thinner, shorter type. Or you can wait till this big, and they're both delicious. You know, it really doesn't matter. I like them both. But these freeze fantastically. So if you have a lot of them and you're continuing to grow them throughout the season, then you can definitely freeze them. Right now would be the time to plant. This is early August in New York, so right now would be the time to plant another plant for the fall. And it will go pretty deep into September, maybe into October for me, and I can continue to have some green beans. But what I like when we, you know, for the beans, because beans do come in a bush, and I find this so much more pleasant and easier to harvest. It looks great in the garden. So this is the type I prefer, which is called the pole bean, and that's because it goes up a pole. But once, you know, getting them going is really the difficult thing, you know, because they like it to be really warm. But if you're in a warm spot, you're probably not going to have much trouble with it. And then they just produce, you know, really well. I mean, you can produce pounds and pounds and pounds of the stuff.